Start with the first keynote speech by Franky Roberto. Franky, please join me. Franky is an amazing person because he has a research and development company after having worked for 3 years with the Science Museum in London, after he studied linguistics at the London University College. And his research and development company, which he shares with 2 colleagues, presumably of the same age, helps institutions, both commercial and non-commercial, to do funny social stuff that you could have read on their own website, which I had the pleasure to do last night. Do you need any more introduction, do you feel?
No.
Okay, ahead you go.
Shall I use this one?
This one, and you can use this one if you want.
Hello? Hello? I like to wander around. I can do this. So, you ready? Go. Guten Tag, Amsterdam. Ich ben Franky Roberto. That's the only Dutch I'm going to speak in this presentation. And I do apologise for forcing you all to speak English for the rest of the day. Feel free to revert back to Dutch in your private conversations, in the toilet, in the bathroom, around and about. I won't feel offended. So, firstly, thank you for inviting me here to Amsterdam and to speak to you all. As the introduction said, I used to work in a museum, and now I work at an agency doing consultancy and also design and development. Kein. Okay. So now I work doing design and development and consulting for museums, but also for non-museums, for people like the BBC and Channel 4 in the UK who are broadcasters, but also for commercial corporate companies. But aside from that, which is kind of the day job, I also am very involved in the open culture, open source communities online. And it's those kind of 2 things that I'm going to bring to this presentation to talk about the open source, open cultures that exist online and the opportunities they enable for museums and cultural institutions. So before I kind of really start, there's 3 things that I don't really want to talk about today. And the first is sites like Facebook and Twitter and other social networks, and whether museums and institutions should have a space on these platforms, these social networks, because I think the answer is obvious. I think we now kind of all see the benefits of being on these platforms, reaching audiences there, and being reachable by our audiences. So I think that's kind of an obvious thing to do now, and it doesn't merit too much discussion in and of itself. The other thing I don't really want to talk about too much is copyright, and more specifically whether cultural institutions and archives and museums should give away their content, allow other people to use their content, to download it, to save it to their computer, to print it out, to print it on mugs and T-shirts. Whilst I think there's still a sort of a great debate in that area and lots of argument to be had, I think people are starting to realize now the benefits of giving away your content and enabling that cultural domain that belongs to all of us to be reusable by all of us. So again, I see that as being a kind of the benchmark of what cultural institutions should be doing. That's like kind of the framework, and we build on top of that. And the final thing, I don't want to talk about too much. I'm not going to use technical jargon, but it's about giving programmatic access to your data. So enabling other computers to access your data, giving your data away as well as your content. And there's been lots of talk in the museum sector, and I've been kind of, for 5 years, advocating that museums open things like APIs or RSS feeds and these other technical speak for giving away access to your data. And I kind of think that now that people are starting to see that argument and starting to build upon that, and whilst there's still lots of practical and technical and legal and other hurdles to overcome, I think the will is there. And again, I see that as being part of the framework, the baseline of the activity that cultural institutions should be doing. So those are the kind of three things that I think form what should be the key part of where museums and cultural institutions start online. But I don't think they define what museums and cultural institutions do online. If all we did was to say, we've got this stuff, take it away, then we'd be providing a service, but it wouldn't be at the service that we could be providing of really offering an engaging and rich experience and collaborating with our audience. So that's going to be what I'm going to be talking about today. So the first thing. So I'm going to start with a kind of overview of some of the platforms and open culture destinations that already exist online. I don't know if you can see that clearly, but that's Flickr Commons. And there's been quite a great movement within Flickr for cultural institutions to participate by uploading their images and their photographs of historic collections and enabling people to comment and to tag and all the kind of things you could do on Flickr with those collections. And I think that's been a great success. It's been a great success for the institutions that have taken part. It's promoted engagement. It's found a new audience that hasn't previously existed. But it's not just, there's the National Archive. So it's not just US and UK institutions on there. We've already got a Dutch institution on there. And as you can see from the screenshot, there's lots of photographs on there and lots of engagement that's already taken place. But it's not just about Flickr Commons. That's Indie Commons, which is another blog which has been really supportive of Flickr Commons, and reporting on that community and being very supportive. So it's not just about one website, it's about the kind of community that can enable. And this, I think the Indie Commons blog just goes to show how much of an audience out there really appreciates what museums have done with Flickr Commons, enabling access to their material. But it's not just about Flickr Commons, because Wikipedia has a commons as well. It's maybe not as well known as Wikipedia, but it powers a lot of the photographs and video and audio content on Wikipedia, as well as Wikipedia's other projects. And Wikipedia are actively seeking cultural institution partners to get more content from. So Wikimedia Commons has been doing things like partnering with the Tropen Museum to bring images to the Commons and uploading images there as well. This was initially launched in partnership with an exhibition, but the Wiki Loves Arts project has also encouraged people to go into cultural institutions with cameras and to take their own photographs, effectively digitizing their collection for themselves. And here are some examples. This is content that's already on Wikimedia Commons from the Tropen Museum, and there are hundreds of these files out there. And people are using them in Wikipedia articles, using them to illustrate the cultural history that exists on Wikipedia and those sort of related projects. And I think Wikipedia is a really important resource. I mean, we talk about the landscape of the web and how the web is a kind of interconnected series of destinations and sites that really people now have become household names. And Wikipedia's up there. It's up there right at the top, you know. Along with Google and Yahoo and Facebook, Wikipedia is one of the most popular sites on the internet. And it's a huge resource that people use day in, day out. It's become something that people refer to and has a huge amount of cultural heritage that's represented there. And so far, I don't see a huge number of traditional cultural heritage institutions really engaging with this content and taking part in building this amazing resource that exists for us all to use. And there are reasons for that, but I think those reasons can be overcome, and we should be taking part in what is a huge site and a huge resource already, rather than sort of having to reinvent the wheel each time.